Group chat is back to discuss. I'm just going to open it wide. Like, was there any? No, I mean, because there's two issues, right? There's the birthright citizenship issue, with lots of people are just like, this is a non-starter. Why are they pushing this, et cetera? And then there's this issue of, what is the process for challenging any given administration? What did you guys hear that struck you?
Well, there's a conservative majority on the court, so there's always the possibility that those justices could decide that those who enter the country illegally are not automatically entitled to becoming U.S. citizens by their birth here. But the bigger issue, as you alluded to, Audie, is this question of nationwide injunctions. It wasn't long ago, just a few months ago, in fact, that the Biden DOJ under Merrick Garland went to the Supreme Court and said that they wanted to put an end to these nationwide injunctions. It has frustrated presidents both on the Republican and Democrat side.
But what I hear the justices actually arguing, the justices were saying, okay, well then what's the alternative? Is it a class action suit? Is it what's the system here?
I think what's the two biggest takeaways I've seen so far is one, how the rule of law will prevail. And I think that's a big question. But two, I think justices are looking for a pathway to rule on the 14th Amendment. This conversation around this particular issue is not new to the high court. I think every president perhaps has had some sort of battle with this. But from a political standpoint, this is right where Donald Trump wants to be, arguing a very key centerpiece for his political platforms every single time he's ran for president. And so at some point he's going to turn to make this a political issue and put pressure on this Supreme Court that's his majority.
Speaking of pressure, people are paying attention to Coney Barrett, right? Because she's someone that they've determined maybe isn't as reliable as they had hoped. I don't think that's the case yet. But here's a moment between Justice Barrett and Elena Kagan and the Solicitor General, of course, arguing for the government. And here's the line of questioning.
There are all kinds of abuses of nationwide injunctions. But I think that the question that this case presents is that if one thinks that it's quite clear that the EO is illegal, how does one get to that result, in what time frame, on your set of rules, without the possibility of a nationwide injunction?
On this case and on many similar cases, the appropriate way to do it is for there to be multiple lower courts considering it. Ultimately, this court decides the merits in a nationwide binding precedent. You have a complete inversion of that through the nationwide injunctions with the district.
So, General Sauer, are you really going to answer Justice Kagan by saying there's no way to do this expeditiously? If there were a class appropriate for class certification, you concede that that could resolve the question quickly?
Yes, absolutely.
You concede.
I'm going to translate a little. There's been this conversation about whether there can be kind of class action lawsuits, and that's the way people can get relief rather than going to a judge in any particular state. But it's the tone, right? Let's pretend we don't know the words, but the tone of her jumping in and saying, are you really going to do that? What did you hear in these moments?
I would say that from years of watching or listening to Supreme Court proceedings and trying to guess where they're going, we should all learn that it's a tricky game. Coney Barrett was put on the Supreme Court by Donald Trump. She has a pretty strong record of voting in the way that one would expect a Trump nominee to vote on decisions. She has diverged a little bit, but not in this way that gets her, that seems to me to validate this idea that she has completely left the Trump side.
Or to your point, Antoine, that it's really about political pressure in a way, right? Saying like, hey, are you doing what you said you would do? All right, group chat, stick around.